For you and I this morning, we are going to be in Numbers chapter 32. And last week we covered a whole bunch of chapters. Today we will cover just one chapter. Let me show you how it's broken down for those of you that like to take notes. There are four main divisions. The first main division, verses 1 to 5, is called request. Okay? Verses 6 to 19, titled responses. Verses 20 through 32, reiterating. What does reiterate mean? Anybody know what reiterate means? Reiterate. Does anybody know what reiterate means? It means to tell you something again. Okay? Your parents leaving for the weekend, and they say, you know, the dog needs to go out, and you need to take the trash, or you need to do these other, turn on the lights, and then they tell you like 16 times before they go, okay? Which is a good thing, because you weren't listening the first 15, right? Reiterating. They're going to reiterate what they've already said. And then lastly, the ratifying of a deal. Ratifying or ratification means they make it official, okay? Now, you and I need to understand that the reiterating and the ratifying we will not cover today, okay? I do not see a great need to go over those sections or those verses, and I'll tell you why. Because the discussion that happens between request and responses, they simply reiterate again the conversation to each other. They're saying, okay, let me get this straight. And they're going over that conversation again. And then at the end, they simply retell that conversation to a different group of people in order to make it official. So, we're going to read the story once. We don't need to read it, 2 more times after that. That's why. The majority of our time will be spent in, all of our time, will be spent in the first 2 main divisions. The first one being request, which is what we will get to here in verse 1. We see that this request, and it's already up there for you, is motivated by sight. Let's look at verse 1. Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of livestock. You know what livestock is, right? Animals, okay? They had a great multitude of livestock. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that indeed the region was a place for livestock, the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spoke to Moses, to Eleazar, who was the head honcho priest, and to the leaders of the congregation. And here's what they said. They said, Ataroth, which sounds to me like some land out of Star Wars. Ataroth, Dibon, Jazer, Nimrah, Heshbon, Elealeh, Sheban, Nebo, and Beon. The country, those are cities and areas within this country, the country which the Lord defeated before the congregation of Israel, is a land for livestock. And your servants have livestock. They refer to themselves as servants. They say, this is a great place. This land right here is a great place for livestock. And we have livestock, just so happens. Verse 5, he says, therefore they said, if we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants, that's them, as a possession. Do not take us over the Jordan. Okay, now the Jordan, what is the Jordan? Anybody know what the Jordan is referring to? Jordan River, thank you very much. There was a river called the Jordan River. Now, in the event that you are brand new and you're thinking, I don't know, it was Reuben, Gad, Moses, livestock, Jordan, what is all of this stuff? Let me explain for you very briefly. The children of Israel, or the Israelites, God's people, are being led, they have been being led for many, many years now, from Egypt to something called the Promised Land. Okay? The Promised Land. Who promised it? God did. God promised them, I'm taking you to a land that is, as he described it, flowing with milk and honey. Now, when I hear flowing with milk and honey, I immediately picture Willy Wonka and his river of chocolate. And I just think like, oh, flowing with milk and honey. And then I really like milk. I don't drink a whole bunch of it these days. Almond or oat milk, in case you wanted to know. I told you anyways, okay? But then also, flowing with honey, flowing with milk and honey. And I love honey. Love honey. And so immediately I think of these rivers, but that's not what it meant. That was a phrase that meant, it was a description, a general description of what the land was providing. The land that God was taking them to, flowing with milk and honey. Milk comes from what? Stater Brothers, okay? So that means that the land was going to be filled with Stater Brothers? No. It means that the land was going to come from cows or goats, whatever else might, produce milk. I don't know. But it means that there was plenty of good land. There was animals there already. And the fact that it was flowing with honey, where does honey come from? Bees, yes. And there's a process there with the honey, but the fact that they would have lots of honey means that there would be lots of bees, means that there would also be lots of what? What do bees live off of? Flowers, yes. Be lots of flowers, crops, those types of things. So in other words, God is saying, I'm taking you to a land that's got everything you need. All you got to do is get there. Now the land is on the west side of the Jordan, okay? The west side. Where they are at this point in Numbers chapter 32, that you and I have on our laps, they are on the east side of the Jordan River. They're getting ready to go in. They're getting ready to cross over into the promised land. This is what God wanted them to do. This is where they're going. Man, things are really looking good. Until the families, the tribes of Reuben and Gad, those families, came to Moses and said, hey, we don't want to go across the Jordan into the promised land. We're looking around at this land east of the Jordan, and man, this land looks delicious. It looks perfect. Perfect for our livestock is what they're saying. So they say to Moses, Moses, this land is great. In fact, in verse 4, look at it with me. The country which the Lord defeated before the congregation of Israel. They even throw the Lord in there. Like, hey, we're going to make a request. The Lord, obviously the Lord must be in this. Because the Lord defeated these people in this area. But this is perfect land for livestock, and we want to stay here. Look at the end of verse 5. Do not take us over the Jordan. In other words, they're saying, do not take us. Please don't force us to go into the promised land. They don't want to go into the promised land. They want to stay on the east side of the Jordan. Okay? Now, you and I, let me share something with you for just a moment. This is what I'm about to share with you. You will not understand right now. I'm going to share something with you about parenthood. Okay? And this is something that you will not understand right now. But what I want you to do is this. I'm going to give you some information about being a parent. I'm a parent. You're not a parent. I get it. But I want you to take this bit of information and I want you to file it away in your mind. And then, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, you will have kids of your own. Incredible. You will have kids. Imagine yourself as a parent. Most of you, maybe all of you, will be parents. And you'll have kids. Okay? Here's what I need to say to you about being a parent. One of the, and perhaps for me, the biggest heartbreak associated with parenthood is unreached potential in your own kids. You will have beautiful little babies, boys and girls. And you will be in the hospital room. If you are a young lady, you will give birth to a little child, and they will take that baby and put it on your, they'll take the baby out and they'll give the baby immediately to you. And you'll just be so hot and sweaty, and your hair will be all frizzy, be all blotchy, bloodshot, broken blood vessels, and you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. No joke. You're going to feel that way. Even though you're going to be an absolute hot mess, hot, not in a good way. You're just going to be an absolute hot mess. and you're going to have a husband there trying to take pictures or video or whatever, you're not even going to care. You're going to have the beautiful little baby in your arms. Or if you're one of the guys, your wife is going to give birth to a child, a little boy, a little girl, and you are going to melt. From the first time that you see that baby come out and you get to hold the baby, your heart will melt and you will be in love all over again. Okay? And as you hold that baby, you will think to yourself as you look at the baby, this baby can accomplish anything. The world is before my beautiful little baby. And you will have dreams and thoughts of, oh, this baby is going to be the cutest baby and is going to be the most successful baseball player or the most successful, businesswoman or whatever. You're going to have all kinds of thoughts, wonderful thoughts. And then as that baby begins to grow and get a little bit older, you're going to realize that something is wrong. You're going to go, you know what? All those hopes and dreams that I had in the hospital room, this baby is not as smart as I thought he or she was. Must take after my spouse's side of the family. But you're going to realize this. You're going to realize that your kids, as they grow older, are not reaching their full potential. And you're going to feel like, no, just you got to go a little bit harder. You got to push a little bit more. Right? Because some of you have those parents. Like, no, come on. You feel like it's never good enough. Like, no, come on. You got to push harder. Come on, would you? Come on. Don't be lazy. Let's go. And you just feel like, oh, man, Mom, Dad, you're always on my back. No, that's because your parents love you like crazy. And they see potential in you that you are not reaching. You're settling for something. Believe me. You're settling. But you will feel that way. Your kids will get older, become teenagers, and they will bring home their first boyfriend or girlfriend. Mom, Dad, I want you to meet Prince Charming. His white horse is parked out front, Got a white Mustang sitting out front. And your mom and dad will look at you and look at that kid up and down and just be like, are you serious? You want to be with this clown? His clothes don't even fit, and look at his pimples, and look at his hair, and look at, why would you want to be with this person? And you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, you're attacking me, and you're attacking my boyfriend, or they're going to do the same thing with your girlfriend. Like, your mom's going to look at her like this. Listen, baby, I know you're not settling for this, right? My baby boy, I know you're not. I know you're not bringing this home. Right? And you are going to feel as a parent like, man, come on, like I taught you better than this. You do not understand this right now. Right now, some of you are experiencing those very things, and you feel like your parents, man, like they don't know nothing. They're just always on your back. Nothing's ever good enough. But one of these days, you will feel that same way. And when you do, the thought of Sunday morning, January 22nd, 2023 will come flooding back into your mind because you're filing this thought away. And then you're going to go, oh my goodness, Pastor Chris was absolutely brilliant. Okay? And when you have that thought, write a little thank you card. Drop it in the mail. Throw a 20 in there. I'm just saying. You're going to remember this and go, oh, this is exactly what he said. Man, please. Every parent experiences that. No matter how great their kids might be, there's always, man, no. But there's a little bit more, man. You're going to settle. Be careful. Don't settle. And you're going to want to push them. And you ought to push them. You ought to push them. Lovingly. But you ought to push them and hold them to higher standards. Listen, family, why am I saying all this? I'm saying this because the children of Reuben and the children of Gad have just requested to stay on the east side of the Jordan. Here is the problem. Problem number one. Look at verse 1. Look at verse 1. Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of livestock, and when they, what? Oh, I'm going to read it for you one more time. Let's see. You ready? Okay, verse 1. Here it comes. Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of livestock, and when, here it comes, what? Thank you. Wonderful. How alert you are. Good job. When they saw the land. When they saw the land. Okay? I want you to see, look at this. When they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that indeed the region was a place for livestock. Look at verse 4. As they're talking, the country which the Lord defeated before the congregation of Israel is a land for livestock. Listen, we are going to find out that these two groups of people, the children of Reuben and the children of Gad, we're going to find out that they had families. All these guys came to talk to Moses and say, we want to stay on the east side of the Jordan. Please don't make us go into the promised land. You're going to find out that they have spouses, they have kids. Did they mention them? Mm-mm. They said, this would be a great land for our animals. See that? Some people, some of you probably, your family has pets, cats or dogs or something. They probably get treated better than you do, huh? Yeah. Some people are like that, right? Like, I just love you, and then they see you come in, hi. Yeah. Right? Right? Some of your dogs, man, they get treated, man, they get carried all over the place like a prince or princess. Right? And you can walk. Can I get a ride to school? You can walk. If your dog was going to school, your dog would get a ride. Right? Yeah. They didn't mention their kids. They will mention their kids later, but the first thing on their mind is their livestock. Why? Why is that? We'll find out why, but let's move into the responses, okay? We've got their request, motivated by sight. We'll come back to this and talk about this in a little bit. But let's look at the responses in verses 6 through 19. Look at the response, first of all, from Moses. And Moses said to the children of Gad and to the children of Reuben, shall your brethren, shall your countrymen go to war while you sit here? No, what's he talking about, okay? I told you I'd give you some clarification, okay? They're supposed to all cross the Jordan into the promised land, and when they get there, the land is theirs, but the truth is that there are people living there. The group of people is called the Canaanites. There's lots of different people, but generally speaking, they're the Canaanites. And God says, the land is yours. Yes, the Canaanites are there, but you're going to go into the land, and you are actually going to destroy all of the Canaanites. See, God had been waiting patiently on the Canaanites to turn from their sin. They wouldn't. It's been hundreds of years, and God says, okay, that's it. I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. The children of Israel are going to get the land, plus they are going to judge the Canaanites and get them out of the land. Okay? So Moses, as he begins to talk to these people, as he's responding to them, he says to them, are you going to send your brothers out to war while you sit here? War? What war? Well, that's what he's talking about. Going into the promised land and conducting warfare in there because they've got to clear out the Canaanites. Now, sounds dangerous until you find out that the last battle that they were in right before this, not one soldier lost their life. How is that even possible? Because God was with them. And as they go into the promised land, they have that promise also. You go in, you fight. Don't worry about it. Nobody's going to die. You just go in and wipe them all out. But you got to go in and possess. It's yours, but you got to go in and possess. So Moses, as he's responding, he's saying, wait a minute. You're telling me that you want to stay over here on the east side while the rest of us go in. Well, not Moses, but everybody else, because Moses was actually going to die. And he knew that. But he says, everybody else is going to go in and fight, and you want to sit over here and do nothing? Verse 7. Now, why will you discourage the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord has given them? Why would you do that? Thus your fathers did. Now, let me tell you what, beginning at verse 8 right here, this response from Moses, it includes this reminder. Now, let me tell you what this is. I'm about to lose some of you, okay, when I say this word. It's the H word. And when I say it, some of you, that's it. You're going to be done. You're just going to be like, oh, man, he lost me, okay? It is the word, it's a bad word, history. See, some of you are like, I hate history. Worst subject ever. I don't know why we have to study about all these dead people, and what does Napoleon Bonaparte have to do with my life, and he don't even understand the struggle, and right, I lost you, but listen, stick with me for just a minute, okay? History. What Moses begins to do at this point is he begins to give them a history lesson. Track with me, please. Verse 8. He says, thus your fathers did. Your fathers did the same thing. What fathers? Okay, let me read this and then I'll explain. Thus your fathers did when I sent them away from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up to the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel, so that they did not go into the land which the Lord had given them. So the Lord's anger was aroused on that day, and he swore an oath, saying, surely none of the men who came up from Egypt, from 20 years old and above, shall see the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me, except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and this young man, Joshua, the son of Nun. That's his dad's name. His mom was not a nun. Okay? For they have wholly followed the Lord. Verse 13, so the Lord's anger was aroused against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord was gone. What he's just done is he's given them a quick history lesson. Now, history, I know some of us hate history. Okay? I'm one of the people that I actually really enjoy history. Okay? And you might look at me, well, that's because you're old. Of course you do. Okay? Hopefully, if you don't like history, hopefully at some point you will be intrigued by it. It's incredible. You've heard it said before that those of us who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. If we don't understand something about history in the past, then we're not learning from those mistakes. And if we're not learning from those mistakes, then we are most likely going to make the same mistakes. And this is an entirely different discussion, but we see that happening in the United States right now. There are people that are making the same mistake that others have made in other countries throughout the world since time began or whatever. Okay, but anyhow, Moses is telling them this. Let me explain to you in case you're not aware. The people that Moses is talking to right now, this is a brand new generation. You go, well, what do you mean a brand new generation? Well, the original generation of people that came out of Egypt, they have all died. They're all dead and buried. Okay? The people that we're dealing with right now, these are their kids, their grandkids of all those people that they're dead, gone, buried. This is a new generation. Okay? And the new generation, Moses is telling, he says, listen, you are about to make the same mistake that your forefathers made. Now, let me tell you about that. Okay, this is something called Kadesh Barnea, or it's more commonly referred to as the 12 spies. Okay, some of you have heard of the story of the 12 spies. This happened many, many years prior to what you and I are reading right now. Here's what happened. The first time, the old generation, they got to the promised land, and they made a mistake. They said, hey, I know God called the promised land a land flowing with milk and honey. However, we're not sure that we believe him. They doubted God. And so because they doubted God, they said, instead of just rushing in and taking it like God told us to do, we want to send in some spies. We'll send in 12 spies. And so the 12 spies went in to the promised land for a month. And they snuck all over the place and traveled and spied out the land. And they came back and they said, Moses and the children of Israel, they said, boy, the land certainly is flowing with milk and honey. They said what God said, the way that God described it, to a T. He's right. It's flowing with milk and honey. And they said, man, we even brought back some grapes. And the bunch of grapes that they brought back was so large and heavy that they had to fasten it to a stick and put it in between two men and carry it like this on their shoulders and head back. It wasn't just, like when you go to Stater Brothers, you just pick up a bag of grapes. It wasn't like that. This thing was so big, so massive, that they had to carry it between two men. And they came back, and they showed the fruit, and they said, it's a land flowing with milk and honey. And they said, all right, great. God wasn't like, let's go into the promised land. And 10 of the 12 spies said, pump the brakes. We cannot go into the promised land. What? Why? God told us to go in. Yeah, there's people there, but he promised that we would defeat them. There's a land flowing with milk and honey. You brought back grapes. There's a bunch of us. What's the problem? They said, no, 10 of the guys said, no, we cannot go in because there are giants that live in the land. And we've talked about it before, mall mentality, right? Wherever the biggest crowd of people is hanging out, we want to be there too, to make it a little more crowded, right? That's why we live in Southern California, because it's so crowded here. I know. Let's get out there and make it more crowded. Okay, that's what we do. We want to be around lots of people. We want to go with whatever, the mall mentality. Wherever everybody's going, let's go. Well, the majority of the spies, there was 10 who said, no, we can't go in. 2 of the guys, Joshua and Caleb, said, no, hold on. We can go in. We need to go in. God told us to go in. We can defeat the giants because God is with us. God's on our side. God told us we got to go in. And the 10 spies said, no way, we can't go in. It's too scary. And the 10, the majority, convinced the majority of the Israelites, and there were potentially millions of the Israelites out there. It got so heated, the disagreement, that they were ready to kill Joshua and Caleb right there. They picked up stones, and they were ready to kill them, and they had to stop them because they were so mad. Now, what happened was, at that point, because they did not believe God, they doubted God, God said, okay, you're not going into the promised land. That's the land I have set up for you. But you won't believe me. You won't live by faith, and you won't go in. What you're going to do this generation, you're going to march around the desert, the wilderness, for 40 years until all of this old generation dies. Once they're all gone, I'll have a new generation, your kids and your grandkids, and we will start the plan over with them. So Moses, in talking to this new generation, is recounting that story. And he's telling them, look, what you're doing is the same thing that your forefathers did. He says in verse 14, and it started with the reminder, now he has this rebuke, and he says, and look, you have risen in your father's place. In other words, your forefathers are dead and gone, and here you are in the same exact spot. He said, a brood of sinful men, to increase still more the fierce anger of the Lord against Israel. You're trying to stir up God's anger against Israel again. Verse 15, for if you turn away from following him, he will once again leave them in the wilderness, and you will destroy all these people. This is Moses. Moses says, listen, I'm getting ready to die. I can't even go into the promised land. God already told me. But if you, Reuben and Gad, you do this, you desert, you're going to convince everybody else not to go into the promised land again, and then God's going to go through the whole cycle of killing everybody off again, and then he'll have to start over with the later generation. Moses is telling them, he's giving them a history lesson saying, don't do that. Okay? But we're talking about responses. We saw the response from Moses with its reminder and its rebuke, but now we see a response from Reuben and Gad. And this is incredible to me. Verse 16, then they came near to him and said. Do you get the picture? Some of you young ladies, beautiful young ladies, you've got a dad at home. And your dad says, you ain't leaving the house dressed like that. And then what do? Your eyes, big puppy dog eyes. But daddy, right? And you get close to your daddy, but daddy. And what happens, you know how to work it. You say, but daddy. And then he's like, all right, fine, go ahead. Here's my credit card, right? He's ready to give in. He's ready to give in because you know how to work it. Some of you guys do the same thing. Oh, but mom. No, hold on. Oh, but mama. Once you say mama, forget it. Your mom's like, oh, that's it. Heart melted and just came out of her foot at the bottom of her body because she's like, you know what? You can just have anything you want. What do you need? Mijo. Right? Anything you want. What do you want? Right? You might talk, maybe it's a grandparent. You know, mom and dad won't let you have such a, mom and dad, they won't let me have a puppy, a papa. And your grandpa's like, what, Mija? Listen, and he starts yelling at your parents, why won't you just let them have a puppy? I'm buying them a puppy. You know, you know how to work it. Did you see what they did? Moses said, no, bad idea. You cannot stay here. No, it's not a good idea. Look at verse 16. Then they came near to him. You see what they're doing? They're getting close to Moses. And they said, Moses, Mo, listen. And they began to reason with Moses. He's just given them facts, man. He laid some facts on them. Took them to school. This is what happened. This is what's going to happen. He laid some facts on them, but you know how it is, right? You know how it is. When you see something you want, man, you don't give up, right? Relentless. Okay? Relentless. Your parents sign you up for a sport, you start playing, it's kind of hard, you quit. But you see something you want, you don't quit. And then you'll tell your parents, well, I mean, you didn't raise a quitter, right? You push. And they said, then they came near to him in verse 18, and they said, we will build sheepfolds for our livestock and cities for our little ones. You see what they did? They're still thinking about their animals first. Listen, Moshe, hold on. Listen, Moses, here's what we'll do. We will build sheepfolds. We'll build enclosures for our animals over here on the east side. And we'll build cities for our little ones. Oh, that's right, we have kids too. We'll take care of them. He says in verse 17, they say, but we ourselves will be armed, ready to go before the children of Israel until we have brought them to their place, and our little ones will dwell in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until every one of the children of Israel has received his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has fallen to us on this eastern side of the Jordan. They said, well, wait a minute, hold on. We promise. We will go with you guys. We're going to build some structures for our animals. Oh yeah, and our kids. And then we'll get our weapons and we will travel with you into the promised land. And we'll go in there like we're supposed to and help you wipe everybody out. And then when it's all over and everybody's got their lands, then we'll come back to the east side of the Jordan and we'll go back over here where we want to be, because this is good for our animals. Okay? So they reason. Now, excuse me. Now what happens at this point is that I told you beginning at verse 20, which we're not going to cover, but beginning at verse 20 all the way down to verse 32, they reiterate. Moses says, okay, wait a minute. Moses can't force them to go in. What's he going to do? He can't force them. He says, okay, wait, you're telling me, okay, you're going to do this and this and this and this and this? And then they go in verses 31 and 32, yeah, we promise we'll do this and this and this and this. So we don't need to read through all of it because it's just a retelling of the same conversation that they just had. And then beginning at verse 33 down to verse 42 is the ratifying of it. Ratifying simply means that they made it official. And they made it official, Moses did, by telling Eleazar the priest and Joshua, who's the next leader. He goes, hey, listen, I made this deal with these guys, these tribes. And here's what's going to happen. And then they distributed land to the families of Reuben and Gad. That's how they made it official. So we don't need to read through all of that. But here's what we want to focus on. We want to focus on the people of Reuben and the people of Gad. Now, I want to remind you, back in verse 1, they said what? They said they saw the land, that it was good for their livestock. That's a problem. Let me explain something to you here. The land that the people of Reuben and the people of Gad are choosing is not in the promised land, it's on the other side of the Jordan, it's on the east side. So what? Right? So what? East side, west side, what does it matter? Right? Years from now, when the Assyrians attack, when the Babylonians attack the children of Israel, guess which two families are taken captive first? Anybody want to take a wild guess? Gad and Reuben. Why? Because they are living unprotected. They're living on the fringe of the promised land. They did not choose God's best, but they settled for less than that. And so when the attack comes, it is always those that are living on the fringe that are going to suffer defeat first. As a Christian, if my faith is all wobbly like jelly and I'm not really sure if I believe in God, I don't know, let me think about it while I drink this beer, or, let me think about it while I'm smoking this joint, or, I don't know really about that God stuff and Jesus stuff. I don't know, church and religion, I don't really know. But, when our faith is all wobbly like that and we're not really sure, what happens is we get attacked spiritually, or life's problems happen. And those of us that are all wobbly in our faith because we haven't made a full commitment, we're the first to go down. We're the first to be taken captive. And I, being a youth pastor for many, 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 many years, I don't have any special knowledge like I can see into your life, I can see your heart and I can tell something's wrong. But what I'm telling you is because of experience, I can spot it from a mile away. And I can see, and I can tell you even in the few short years that I've been here 4 years now, looking back to students that came into the youth group, and once they graduated, poof, gone. Where'd they go? They got involved in all kinds of craziness. And I'm telling you, I could see it coming. But they didn't want to listen to me. Try to talk to them. Look, the decisions you're making, the people that you're hanging with, I'm telling you this is what's going to happen. They didn't want to hear it. So they just kept on pushing along. And now where they're at, gone, I don't know. They're not here. They're not serving the Lord. They're not following the Lord. They were on the fringe. And so when the attacks came, first gone, boom. Also, there is a story in the New Testament about Jesus and his disciples. And they get into a boat and they sail across the sea. And Jesus had just stepped out of the boat. Boom. And this demon-possessed man came rushing at him. The man was, no joke, was naked and had broken chains on his hands. They couldn't keep him captive because the demons that he had in him, there were so many of them that they had taken control of this man. He had power over everybody and everything except for Jesus. Does anybody remember that story? Does that sound familiar? Okay, some of you have heard that. Okay. Does anybody know what that guy's name was? Legion. Remember? Yeah. Jesus asked the demons inside of him, "What is your name?" And the demons inside of him said, "Our name is Legion because we are many." But that was not the man's name. We don't know the man's name. We know what the demons said, there's a legion of us in here. But that was not the man's name. We don't ever get the man's name. But by the time Jesus leaves, the man is sitting, clothed, and in his right mind, the Bible says. He is known as the Gadarene demoniac. Gadarene demoniac. See, the land that they're choosing, Reuben and Gad, ends up becoming not only fringe, but for years and years and generations after them, the land is no bueno. No good. No good. Sour. It had been poisoned. It was bad news. All because They saw the land, and they made a decision based on what they saw. Now, you need to understand this. You don't have to turn there, but let me read something to you. Those of you that come on Wednesday nights for our Wednesday night study, you will have heard this before. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. Anybody know that verse by any chance by heart? It's a short one. You want to memorize this. For we walk by what? Faith. Not by we walk by faith, not by sight. The children of Reuben and the children of Gad, they walked by sight and not by faith. See, when I make a decision based on what I see, it's a good chance that I'm going to get myself in trouble. Seeing by sight is limited because I only see the immediate. Seeing by faith gives me vision for now and for the future. The truth is that the children of Reuben and the children of Gad settled for less than what God wanted for them. They thought it was the best. So they settled. And that's what so many of us do. My son, the other night, a night or two ago, we like to talk about a lot of things, and he's always got facts and all this stuff that he learns. And he was talking about the downfall of Pizza Hut. And he was talking about, no, man, look, the article said that Pizza Hut started out this way. And it did. I remember. I'm an old guy. And I remember Pizza Hut. You used to be able to, you go into Pizza Hut, and there would be tables, and there'd be arcade games. Put a quarter in. Centipede. All day. Okay? Galaga. Okay? Tetris. Whatever. But you would order your pizza. Family would be there. They bring the pizza to you, sit down at the table, eat. Man, it was like a whole experience. Pizza Hut now, you go into a Pizza Hut, if you even go into the Pizza Hut, normally you want to get it delivered, right? Or they bring it out to your car. You go into the Pizza Hut, there's no tables or chairs in there. You know why? Because they don't like you. They're like, get your pizza and get out. We got other customers, right? You can't do that anymore. And he was talking about why this happened. Now, there are lots of reasons, but one of the big ones is Domino's. Where's my Domino's people at? How many of you like Domino's? You're like, yo, Domino's. Yeah, okay. Domino's came onto the scene. And they revolutionized, right? They started selling cheaper pizzas. And you go in and you just pick it up and you take it back to your house. Easy. And then delivery. Like, I don't even have to leave my couch. They'll deliver it. All I got to do is get up and give the delivery driver some money. We actually used to do that in the old days. You would have cash and you would give the delivery driver some money. Now, I don't even have to leave my couch, man. Grubhub, whatever, pay right there, boom, done. They get now what's happening? Now it's, oh yeah, just when you get here, just open the door and slide it in. Like you don't even have to get up. It's incredible. So all of these things changed the industry. But now what happened several years ago? Pizza, right? What's that? Little Caesars. Now, all of a sudden, man, I can get me, wait a minute, you're telling me the pizza's already ready? And it's $5? What? The very first Little Caesars that I walked into many years ago in San Bernardino, they brought out this box, man. It was like this big. It was like, it was a cardboard, but it had paper over the top. And you rip that thing open, and you'd have 2 pizzas in there, 2 square pizzas for $5. This is way back in the 1900s, okay? Check your history books. And as a teenager, I'm like, wait, $5 for these 2 pizzas? And all of my little Mexican friends would just be so excited, like, oh yeah, I can pitch in 50 cents, right? And we would buy those pizzas, man. And you know how it is. When it's cheap, it tastes so good, like, oh, I don't know, it's just the best thing I've ever had, okay? What happened? What happened is that people, society, settled. Listen, we could get get that expensive pizza, go sit down, play video games. Or we could just get this little $5 pie. It kind of tastes like a napkin with sauce on it, but it's only $5. I'll put up with it. What happens is that people naturally settle for less. That's what we do. We naturally settle for less. I'll give you an example. Some of you come in here and you don't really want to talk to anybody because you're kind of scared, kind of shy. So you find the first chair that you find, man, you just sit down in that chair. You don't want to make the effort to meet anybody, right? We just want what's easy, what's fast. I don't want to be fully committed. Come on, please. I don't want to start serving in church. Then what? Then I got to be there early Wednesday nights, or I got to be there early Sunday morning. I got to stay late. Like, man, I don't have time for all of that. I'm way too busy, way too important for all that stuff. We want what's fast. We want what's easy. We want what we think is best because we see it with our eyes and we don't see it with our faith. Let me ask you a question as we finish up. Am I settling? Am I settling for something less than what God wants for my life? Here's what I'm going to name several things. I'm going to list several things up here. When I am being faced with a decision. Now listen, I'm not talking about when you're in the ice cream shop. Okay, should I get Rocky Road or should I get sherbet? Let me pray about this. And your family's like, could you just choose? No, I'm waiting to hear from the Lord. Shut up. Family's all done with their ice cream. You're still sitting there like, Lord, just speak to me about what I... Listen, that's not what we're talking about. Just pick an ice cream and let's go. If you made a mistake, your parents will buy you another one. Just go back in, buy the other one. Okay? We're not talking about that. We're talking about when you have decisions to make that are important, decisions that are going to affect you or maybe your loved ones for years to come, maybe. Here's some things to think about. Number one, God knows best. Does he, though? See, that's what the children of Reuben and children of Gad would have said. Does he, though? That's what the 10 spies said. Does he, though? But we all know that God knows best. So whenever I have some decision coming up, I know that God knows what's best. I got to determine that in my mind and in my heart. God knows what's best. What's the next thing? The next thing is God wants the best for me. God wants the best for me. I know he does. Some of you ladies, you want to keep these first two in mind when you're looking at that young man and just, oh, look how dreamy he is, and oh, he just smells so good, and look at his clothes, and oh, his hair, woo, right? And you're just feeling like you want to go, wait, God knows what's best, and God wants the best for me. Is this chump the best thing for me? Does he open doors for you? Does he treat you? Is he a servant to you? I could go down the list. I'm going on a totally different, let's keep moving, okay? I like you young ladies, and anyways, let's go. God knows best. God wants the best for me. But here's a question. Number one, number three, I'm sorry. Have I prayed about this? Yeah, well, you see, it's kind of like, listen, simple question. Have you prayed about this? Here's the next one. Have I received scriptural confirmation? What is that? How does God talk to me? Well, he talks to me through the wind or through the ocean waves. No, that's not what God does. That's not what God does. God talks to us, you and I, through the Bible. He speaks through what he's spoken. 5 years ago, Pastor John Miller said, Pastor Chris, would you consider leaving your church and coming to Revival to be the youth pastor? I said, I most certainly will pray about it. And I prayed about it. I didn't ask anybody. I just prayed about it. I said, God, what do you want me to do? And through a series of circumstances, and finally at the end, I sat down at a Bible study, and the pastor opened up the Bible to Matthew and began to read a story about the disciples leaving their nets and following Jesus. And right there in that Bible study, I was up in the mountains, the Spirit of God spoke to me. Not in a voice. It wasn't like, that's it, Pastor Chris, you need to go to revival. But as I read the Word, all of a sudden the Word jumped out at me, and it was like, oh my goodness, God, this is from you. And I looked around. Nobody else noticed. Nobody else cared. Nobody knew what was going on. But the Spirit of God spoke to me from the Bible. Has God done that? Okay, what's the next one? Will getting what I want be God's best for me? If I get what I want, will it be the best for me? What's the next one? Will getting what I want strengthen or weaken my relationship with God? You know, I'm thinking about going to the college, and I'm trying to decide if I should go to MSJC or if I should go down to San Diego. Yeah, I know the San Diego school. I know it's a party school, but I mean, come on, I'm so godly. I won't get caught up in that. Famous last words. How many people have done that? They say, no, I signed MSJC. Oh my gosh, ghetto. I'm going down here because, this is a cool school or whatever. And, oh yeah, I know it's a party school, but I'm not all about that, And then they get caught up in that. Will the decision that I'm making, if I get what I want, will it strengthen or weaken my relationship with God? I need to answer myself that. What are the possible long-term results from this choice? The families of Reuben and the families of Gad didn't think about that. They didn't care. They saw with their eyes. All they could see was, oh, this is a good place for our cattle, our livestock. We can raise fat animals. We can sell them. We'll get rich. Oh, yeah, we have kids too. That's all they were thinking about. They didn't realize that when they were attacked, they weren't in the promised land. They settled. They're on the fringe. Boom. All those animals, all their beautiful kids, their families, gone. Lost it. What are the possible long-term results from this choice? I have to be careful, family. I think that's it, right? Yes, that's it. Let's go back to that. I have to be careful because I can make decisions based on my eyes real quickly. When I go out to Cabazon, to the outlets, I always like to go over to All Saints. I see the big glass walls there in the front, and there's a bunch of, they're all antique, vintage sewing machines. And then I look through at all the clothes, and it's like, oh, what's all in there? And then I go inside, and I just smell all the clothes. I'm like, man. And then I leave. Because All Saints is too expensive for me. Right? Then I get on OfferUp. Anybody selling an All Saints shirt, used or something? But I have to be careful. What'll happen is you go out, man. You're shopping for winter formal. Come on. Like, oh, now we're talking. And mom and dad, they said, here's our card. We'll drop you off at the mall. Go buy yourself something. You go shop with your friends or whatever. Get yourself. Oh man. And you go in there just looking with your eyes. You can get yourself in trouble, right? You just see something you like, and you're like, woo, that's it. I am going to look so fire in this. Beep, scan that card, boom, gone out. Go get you some Sbarros, done. Until you get home. And your mom or dad saw the transaction, and they're like, wait a minute. How much did you spend on those? You got all kinds of stuff to say at the mall, but now all of a sudden you can't talk. Because what happened? Because you looked with your eyes. You just saw something you liked, man, and you just went for it. And you end up getting yourself in trouble. Mom or dad would be like, no, you gotta take that back. No, it's too expensive. No, right? We have to be careful. Seeing with our eyes limits us. We don't walk by sight, we walk by faith, meaning we make decisions based on faith. What does God want? What does God desire? Is this God's best for me? And if we will have that attitude and those thoughts, and we will work our way through these with the decisions that we have to make, listen, the book of James, chapter 1, tells us when you need wisdom, ask for it, and God will give you wisdom liberally. What is wisdom? Wisdom is what you do with the knowledge that you have. If right now we hear gunshots outside, right? And I tell Jonathan, hey, do me a favor. Could you look outside real quick? Because I'm not going to do it. Could you go look outside? And he looks out, picks his head out, and he comes back in and says, oh, yeah, there's a guy with a gun out there. He's shooting. And I go, well, it's time to go and I'm hungry, so that's the end of class. Can you guys please get out? That's not using wisdom, right? That's not wisdom. I have the knowledge of what's going on outside, but I did not exercise wisdom. Wisdom would be, all right, barricade the doors, turn off the lights, everybody lay down, don't say a word, call the police, right? That would be wisdom. What I do with the knowledge that I have. And James says, ask God and he will give you wisdom liberally. We need to ask for wisdom. Father, thank you so much.